Hello, good evening, and welcome back to another series of Learning with Isha. In this series, we're going to talk about cellular respiration. We'll take it like a story, and chapter wise, we'll start understanding each step in detail. Like every story has a preface, today's video is going to serve as an introduction to our story. So, now when we talk about respiration, the first logical question is why do we need respiration? And to understand, I'll take you to another question. That question is why do we need energy in the body? Well, let it be a bacteria, let it be a fungi, let it be a rodent or an organism as complex as us, we humans. We all need energy. But why? As you might have guessed correctly, energy is the basis of every reaction. So, for everything happening in your body, let it be growth, let it be maintenance activities, let it be your exercise, everything is going to require energy. Now, where do we get this energy from? Another obvious question and another obvious answer. The answer is this energy comes from food. Now, if I talk about autotrophs, that is plants or algae or cyanobacteria, they perform photosynthesis. So, essentially, what they do is sunlight hoti hai, they trap it in chemical bonds, make glucose, starch, sucrose, and later on it is broken down to release energy. If we talk about heterotrophs like us, we depend on two kinds of organisms for our food. Either we could be herbivores and depend on plants, or we could be carnivores and depend on other animals for our food. Another group of organisms is fungi, the saprophytes. So they depend on dead and decaying matter. The conclusion of all this story is that whatever kind of organism it is, they all need energy from food. The sources could be different, but the aim is to break this down and release energy. And that is where respiration steps in. What is respiration? The story of respiration is essentially the story of how this food is going to be broken down and how we are going to get energy. So now let's come to a technical definition of respiration. So one way, easier way of defining respiration could be it is the process of breakdown of food inside a cell to release energy. So the key words here are it is breakdown of what? Breakdown of food. Where? Inside a cell. To do what? To release energy. So these are the key factors in this definition. Another way of defining it could be the oxidation in cells. So what is the process? It is oxidation. Where? In the cells. Leading to what? Leading to the breakdown of carbon-carbon bonds in a cell to release a large amount of what? Energy. You see, the carbon-carbon bond has some energy stored in this. As this bond would be cleaved, some energy would be emitted. And this emitted energy is stored in the form of a molecule that we know as ATP. We're going to talk about it more in the later part of the video. Now we're going to talk about that molecule, that food that is being broken down. That molecule is known as a respiratory substrate. It is known as a respiratory substrate. So now let's talk a little bit more about this respiratory substrate. Well, as we have discussed, these respiratory substrates are those compounds that are undergoing oxidation within the cell to release energy. Now, what are these compounds? These compounds are normally carbohydrates. Now, carbohydrates, what could be an example? You see, in plants, all the photosynthetes are normally stored in the form of sucrose or starch. Now this sucrose and starch are broken down to form glucose, glucose forms pyruvate, and then a series of steps happen that cause a release of this energy. Also, these respiratory substrates could be fats, proteins, or organic acids in the case of some plants that we're going to talk about in the subsequent videos. Now, another important question that comes here is, all this energy that is released by the breakdown of these respiratory substrates, where does it go? Is it released freely into the cell all at once? Well, no, this does not happen. There is a sequential, a gradual, a stepwise release of energy. Why is this energy released slowly? That is because if all the energy, let's say I'm breaking down glucose, whatever energy, let's say it is released all at once, the cell is not going to be able to utilize it or store it. Most of it would be lost as heat. It will lead to a lot of wastage. To avoid this wastage, nature has designed several steps in which this energy is broken down. That is exactly the story of respiration. Now, all this energy released is stored in the form of chemical bonds in a molecule that we know as ATP. ATP stands for adenosine triphosphate. Why is this known as the energy currency of the cell? Where is it formed and how is it utilized is exactly the topic for our next video. Well, this brings us to the conclusion of this video. The next video is going to talk about ATP in detail. Do consider subscribing to the channel to be informed as soon as I post another video, another installment from this series. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like this video and press the bell icon.